So why are baby boomers like dumb, whatever, crazy? So to understand this one, you have to go back to lead, believe it or not. So I guess in the 1920s they came up with a way to like make car engines more efficient, and they did that by putting I forgot what it's called, tetralethyl lead or some kind of crap. It was but they added lead basically to the gas, and this caused lead to be added up into the atmosphere or whatever.
Brain damage from decades of exposure to environmental tetraethyl lead. Real talk, all baby boomers are brain damaged from exposure to lead in gasoline.
It wasn't until the 50s that like having a car was a norm for a teenager, basically. So now you've got the baby boomer teenagers working on these cars, you know, loving them, all having them, driving them, working on them. So they're just like bathing themselves in this gasoline. But the main problem with the lead is that if it's ingested. So originally I thought it was because they were eating paint chips, which, you know, is probably like, you know, largely true, but it looks like the majority of their dumbness comes from the environmental lead pollution that was happening during the time, which people discovered, and then that's why they removed lead from the gasoline, because they did notice that the IQ went down during this period of time. Exponentially to how much lead was in the environment, and then IQs recovered since the lead has been removed from the environment. So unfortunately the baby boomers got the brunt of this lead poisoning, because they were one of the only generations that like basically were born with it. They grew up with it. And then of course there's their diet in general. So they were one of the first generations to have like aluminum fucking everything. Aluminum was a new invention again, just along with the cars. It was a newer invention. So, you know, aluminum foil, aluminum cans for beer and everything. Again, something they grew up with. And we're just finding out now though that it's causing like Alzheimer's or whatever. So like, you know, that may be a factor in their, like, now that they're old, why they're so crazy or why they're becoming so crazy. You know, it's just another factor. But I believe a more larger factor is probably, and this is something I can't really like, you know, prove per se, but I believe it has a lot to do with the processed foods that they were the first generation to like be around nothing but processed foods, you know, or have the ability to ingest large amounts of it, like TV dinners, fast food, which is, you know, one of the biggest ones. And of course, like, we found out that there was the mad cow disease back in the 90s, and it kind of came and went, but I believe it's still a factor, or at least I think it was probably a bigger factor back in the 80s and 90s. And again, this is a time where, you know, baby boomers, like, diets are just awful. I believe they only cooked in the 80s and 90s, just because they had families. So, but my main point is just that this processed diet hasn't helped with, you know, their mentality, basically, by the dumbing down of lead paint, that they're just so lazy. They don't want to cook, you know, unless they have to, like some kind of sucker, you know, has to like cook their own food and stuff. But anyway, so their diet, their environment, you know, dumbed them all down or whatever, and then opened them up to this like propaganda that they got through television, through the colleges and everything, and through a group of people basically at the helm of this, which, you know, have to remain unnamed. Just have to use your imagination for that one. Yeah, this dumbing down, you know, their environment, all these things contributed from their entire lives of being very sociopathic or you know, inward thinking, where they're only about themselves. But that's just because they were basically stunted as children, like mentally. Like, that's why they're also, like, I would say mentally between the ages of 2 and 7. That's how they act.
I want a refund. Just give me a refund! You want?
Go find out Lambs at 996 1. I'm calling 911.
We can't do any more. Do you understand need to act that way.
Oh, no, I guess I do. That's so
You're,
What's taking so long? It's pissing me off.
This lifetime of like environmental dumbing down, just like, you know, all these things that were happening to them, but it just compounded throughout their existence from when they were little to now that they're older. This idea that they not only should they have it their way, but they're entitled to have it their way, I guess. Like, I don't know, it's just a childish mentality, like being very sociopathic, being very, like, I don't know, just like greedy, I guess, and only thinking about themselves. But that's just driven, I mean, that's just driven from their childish mentality. So, you know, it's a consequence of their dumbing down